Hello, Dr. Terry. I hope you're doing fantastic. For my video reflection, I'm going to focus my talk on Day, Aristotle, and Lewis. Now, I really like the last class because I want to be an academic, I'm something of a writer, and I'm trying to learn photography. So it's rather relevant to me, and I was inspired to have a rather literal take on lenses. This is a 50mm lens. It's only good for taking pictures of what's in front of you. But it's a portrait lens, and you can capture people and objects in great detail. But there's no zoom. If you want your objects to be bigger or smaller, you have to take a step back. And Day writes of St. Teresa, who expected nothing of herself. She was a little grain of sand trampled underfoot and forgotten. God would do it all in making her saint because he wanted it. And I wonder if Day, caught up in very visible activism and writing, found the little way that Teresa lived out almost too small and was trying to make sense of it. I know I'm attracted to it because it reminds me that God can make wonder, beauty, and greatness out of small things, the little actions that take big effort. To take a good picture with this lens, you have to move around a bit and decide what you're focusing on since there's so little space to work with. This here is a 70-300mm lens, a telescope lens, honestly. It is incredible for distances, to see more, to get the big picture. But using this lens, you can't see very well what's in front of you. And Aristotle extols the virtue of living a year of living finely over many years of an undistinguished life. Aristotle imagines a person willing to sacrifice, to live boldly, and thinks it better than a person willing to live a simply unacknowledged life. And I get that, sort of. I don't want to be the center of attention, but I like recognition when I do something well. I'm attracted to the idea of sacrifice, of seeking however fleeting the fantastic greatness. But sacrifice and greatness can be found in the small things. Jesus rode into Jerusalem on a donkey, not a horse, and there was no triumphal parade by Roman standards in sight. And so this lens is great for landscapes, distances. When you're shooting those, the details and smaller things fade away, but the visually significant things remain. And the greatness Aristotle conceives of, which is sort of like this lens, is not quite the same as Christ, who claims that the last shall be first and the first shall be last. Which brings me to my favorite lens. It is a 28-90mm lens. It's my perfect lens. I constantly adjust and readjust the zoom when I'm using it. I like seeing things from different perspectives. This is the best lens to use if you have if you have two things in mind. And Lewis writes to his students, those feeling pulled to fight in the war, advising them to stay unless they must go. If our parents have sent us to Oxford, if our country allows us to remain there, then this is evidence that the life we can best lead to the glory of God is the learned life. Frustration, the feeling that we shall not have time to finish, tries to draw those called to the learned life away from it. With graduation hardly more than 3 months away, I'm definitely feeling the strain of choice. What to do when I'm done with school, specifically how to stay focused on my studies after I graduate. And so this lens, I like. It's good for capturing two things, but my better photos tend to have one thing more in focus than the other. The foreground is clear, for example, and the background is blurred. This makes things more interesting, more dynamic, but it becomes clear what is most important. Lewis doesn't say we must ignore our responsibilities, deny the reality of war or anything else, but simply to focus on what God has made a priority for us. Thanks for listening.